Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Longworth, and welcome to another edition of Triad Today, coming to you from the Senior Botanical Garden in Kernersville. We'll tell you more about them later on, and later on is when the roundtable shows up. We'll get into some controversial topics, so stay tuned for that. A lot of great guests, important information coming your way throughout the half hour. But where we want to start, I want to learn about something that has to do with poetry and basketball, and I don't understand the connection, but I'm going to find out. And here are two gentlemen that are going to help me through this. On my right, my good buddy, Atticus Simpson, Director of Community and Government Affairs for True Lion Federal Credit Union. And Atticus brought a special guest with him today, Clement Mallory, who's founder and executive director of something called Kids Poetry Basketball. We'll get to that in just a second. Welcome, guys. Good to see you. Atticus, the True Lion launched your own foundation just last fall. How's it going, and what type of impact is it having?
Yep, thank you. Thanks to be here. Good to see you. The foundation's doing great. You're right. We launched it in November, so we've been alive for, I guess, about 8 months now, and we're already having a good impact in the community. In fact, we've been able to help about 100 community organizations with some needs that they've had. We've provided 18 scholarships to students who are college-bound, and then we've also provided about $33,000 in support to our employees through our Employee Relief Fund.
How do you decide what kind, because we'll get to Clement in just a second, but how do you decide which organizations, I don't want to say are worthy, because they're all worthy.
They're all worthy,
But
right.
how do you decide which ones to sort of cull it down to give money to and support?
Sure. Well, we have focus areas, but we also have employees who are involved. True Lion is a not-for-profit financial cooperative owned and operated by our members, and our members include our employees. And so our employees are involved in that process. We have an advisory board of employees who help us to assess all of our charitable giving. And we have focus areas. So we have financial education, of course, is one, community development, youth and education, and economic mobility. And it's those last two focus areas that got us engaged with kids, poetry, basketball, and the great work that Mr. Mallory does.
All right, now, Clement, let me ask you this, because I'm curious about it. What's your organization all about? Who does it serve, and why did you create it?
Well, Kids Poetry Basketball is actually a literacy program for kids ages 4 to 13, and we teach them how to read, spell, and identify poetry words while playing basketball.
While playing basketball?
While playing basketball. It really does work. We do a lot of work with communities and schools, Guilford County schools, the City of Greensboro, Parks and Recreation, Greensboro Housing Authority, Partnership Village of the Greensboro Urban Ministry, and we've been around since 2010.
And you're really inspiring these kids. I mean, I have this vision of kids playing basketball, but you do it kind of like academic and support and reading, and they really get into it, don't they?
Very much so. They are very, very engaged in the activities. We actually have over 32 different basketball, poetry activities. And even though our goal is to teach kids how to read, spell, and identify poetry words while playing basketball, our mission, however, is to develop creative, critical thinking skills.
And it keeps them engaged, because from the sports angle, from the poetry angle, from just being with them and supporting them, it keeps them engaged, so you have less problem with dropouts later on, right?
Indeed, indeed. We find that a lot of youngsters actually become poets, good public speakers.
That's great. That's great. Now, what kind of feedback do you get from kids, parents, the community? What kind of feel do you get for that?
They love it. We receive rewards from different organizations, great recommendations from different principals, and we are always asked to present Kids Poetry Basketball. So
that's right. How does support from True Lion Foundation help with your mission?
Big time. Since 2019, when we first built our relationship with True Lion at the Greensboro Swarm game during a nonprofit night in which Kids Poetry Basketball was the nonprofit for that night. I met a representative from True Lion that night, and from that point on, they've been supporting the program by allowing us to present the program for free for a lot of at-risk students.
I think that's great. I want to put this up on screen where kids and parents can get more information. And tell me if I get this wrong, Clement. KidsPoetryBasketball.com. That's good? Please go to that, folks. And thanks to Todd Hall, Atticus, and their team, and everybody at True Lion and the foundation up on screen, truelionfcu.org. Check out that website as well. And Atticus, I know you're real proud of the work that Clement's doing.
Yeah, very proud. He does some really great work, and that's right in line with what we're trying to do at the foundation, particularly in the skills that he's building, because, I know that they're building great basketball skills, but also poetry skills, speaking skills. All that is so critical to our future workforce. I think that's just a really great thing, and it's something that we get behind 100%. We're proud to be a partner with you.
Well, I thanks both of you for doing this. Keep up the good work.
Thank you
very
Both of you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today, I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about workforce development, getting people back to work and fully employed, and we do that with an expert in the field who comes to us from Goodwill Industries in Northwest North Carolina. Kaisha McDermott Carter is the Regional Director for Workforce Development Services at Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me.
Now, how does Goodwill assist people with building their skills so that they can be more competitive if they try to go out in the world of work? How do you assist them?
So Goodwill offers career services through our case managers. We can help them build their resumes, do cover letters, get them online profiles on Indeed and ZipRecruiter. We also assist them with overcoming barriers that might come up to stop them from completing their programs.
Yeah, let me interrupt you to say, because you're talking about barriers. That makes me think. Give me an example of a barrier that somebody might face of any age or any background, to employment. Give me an example of that.
So we get a lot of people that come and they may not have transportation. So through our partnerships, we have bus passes that we can give them. We also now have Lyft rides that we can provide them for the first 3 weeks of their employment. That allows them to get a couple of paychecks under their belt.
I think that's great. So you have those resources available and other things too to folks. Now, I also happen to know that you have a pretty good relationship with a lot of different community partners and things. Give me some examples of the community partners that you work with, and how that makes a difference for folks.
So we do. We have very many partners around the Triad. We're partnered with NC Works. They're actually inside our building, and that assists with the funding for training and education that pays for them to go at no cost to the participants. We also have Telemon that assists our agricultural workers. They can assist them with various things, rent, food, shelter, through that partnership. We also have Golden Leaf funding that is for our rural partners and participants.
Yeah, so that, because they have a whole different set of problems if they're living way out in a rural area as opposed to being right in the city where a lot of the action's going on.
Correct.
And then it goes back to your thing about transportation could be an issue, or daycare or anything else. I want to get a really good long plug in for how your programs are funded, because I want to reiterate and remind people that the community is really helping you to do this. So talk about how your programs are funded.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jim. So our programs are funded through the donations that people bring to Goodwill. A lot of people don't realize that 89 cents of every dollar that they spend goes right back into those programs to help people with their resumes and look for jobs and get technology to be successful in the workforce.
Yeah, that's right. And you're right. People say, well, I'm going to run down to Goodwill. I'm going to drop off a suit or a pair of pants or something I don't need. And then what happens is those things will end up in the Goodwill store. Correct. People will come in and buy them, the real bargains, a lot of these things. And then the proceeds from that go back around, end up to help you help other people. And so, it's like a community effort to try to get everybody back to work, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Before time runs out, let me just very quickly put you on the spot. What's gratifying to you about doing your job?
So I'm a people person, Jim, and I appreciate the question. I love to see people get back to work. I love to be out at the community events, talking to people and explaining to people the services that Goodwill offers. It's really interesting to see their aha moment when they say, Goodwill does that? So that's really gratifying for me to see.
Well, I appreciate all you do. Up on screen, goodwillnwnc.org. Please check out that website and learn more about what Kaisha and all her team are doing, and thanks for everything you do for so many people.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today, and we often hear about the city of Winston-Salem being the city of the arts and innovation. And I guess that's true. I wonder how those two could ever come together. We have a gentleman with us now that's going to tell us exactly how that happens. A very special guest, Dr. David Popoli, Program Director of the Performing Arts Medicine Clinic, Atrium Health, Wake Forest Baptist. Good to see you.
Nice to see you. It's a mouthful to say there.
Yeah, that's right. And of course you wear a lot of hats too, but I'm just focusing right now on this performing. I'm just intrigued by this whole thing. I'd never heard of it. Now, explain to me this performing arts medicine concept. What is that all about?
So it is a clinic designed for a very specific population. It can be musicians, can be dancers, might be a vocalist, but anyone's engaged in performing arts. And the idea was to bring very specialized care with physicians who are familiar with and have experience with this group of patient population and physical therapists, and bring them together in an effort to really solidify care for this unique group of people.
Yeah, now my musical experience was limited to playing the clarinet and occasionally the saxophone, and we didn't get too many injuries, but you're talking about the folks that are really physical, the dancers and others. What kind of folks do you see? What kind of injuries do you see?
Well, so you can see dancers obviously are going to have injuries from overuse, and that may be from the extreme ranges of motion they're using. It may also be just due to their number of training hours. Many of our dancers are professionals, and so they're dancing 20, 30, 40 hours a week, sometimes even more during their competitive seasons or during something like the Nutcracker. Musicians too, it may not seem like there's as much going on, but if you think about it, it just happens on a much smaller scale.
Right.
So they may be, doing 2,000 finger movements per session.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. And then all of a sudden you've got some weird form of carpal tunnel or something like that. But you're right. I mean, as the old saying goes, the show must go on. So are you also finding yourself having to help folks to keep them going and almost like a rehab in process?
Absolutely. And that's part of the Performing Arts Medicine Clinic, is really designed to keep dancers, musicians, vocalists doing what they do. A lot of them have had negative experiences, perhaps, with the medical profession in the past when they've just been told, you need to stop.
Yeah.
And most of them will not do that.
Yeah, and that's no slam against other physicians and specialists and surgeons, but you're specializing in an area where you actually understand what they're going through, what their deadlines are, and what the pressures are upon them, and that they have to keep going.
And what we're saying is, how do we adapt what you're doing? Can we find a workaround? Can we adapt your equipment, perhaps, as a way to make you be able to continue doing what you do?
Our good buddy Justin Gomez from Atrium sent me an email one day and was talking about the advantages of a team. And I want to know what he meant by that.
What we're trying to do is make sure that we've got the full spectrum of people that you might see. So we have certified athletic trainers that work in the community, and they might be the person that's on the front line. They're seeing them at the performance, and they're recognizing it as either something that's a dangerous injury, we need to talk about that, or here's some things we can do in the short term. The next sort of layer of care is me, the physician level, saying particularly if you've had a chronic problem, what might be going on? Do you have a strength or flexibility imbalance? Is it something about your training technique?
Maybe even doing something wrong.
Maybe even doing something wrong. Likely not.
No. Yeah, we don't want to disparage a dancer they might come over here and...
But sometimes it is. It's true. It's all about training, and if you've developed a certain habit, that can lead to injury over time.
We're almost out of time. Two quick things. We mentioned about Winston-Salem and the clinic and all this, but you can treat people outside of the county, right?
Absolutely. I've seen people from Charlotte Ballet. I've had people travel to see me from Georgia, and so I'm open to whomever at any place that's around here.
Do they need a special referral?
They do not.
All right, that brings me to this. You can call 336-716-3286, or you can go to this particular website, wakehealth.edu/performingartsmed to get more information. Doc, this is fascinating. It's the first time I've heard about it. I hope you'll come back and tell me more.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today. Always glad when we can spend a few minutes with this good guy. He's a friend of mine, Jimmy Flythe, is Director of Government and Community Relations for Duke Energy, and we welcome you back to the program, sir.
Thank you. Always glad to be here.
You had sent me an email one day and said, let's talk about peak electric demand. Now, I think I know what that means,
Sure.
but I don't know a lot of things, so I'm going to get you to clarify. Give me a quick definition. What do you mean peak electric demand?
So, all the energy that we use, just kind of thinking about, when it's hot like it's been, Everybody's air conditioning's on, industry's going. So, the overall demand of energy on the grid is kind of hits a peak. And actually, it was so hot in June, we've actually hit 2 records for Duke Energy in
Wow.
North Carolina already. And it was kind of really, wasn't even summer yet.
Well, I was looking this up, and you guys have something that sounds kind of neat called a Power Manager program. And there's, as I understood, there were 2 options. I'm going to take them one at a time.
Sure.
One is the AC control option. What is that all about?
Yeah, so this is a program, Power Manager, that's a program that helps with the grid. And by helping the grid reduce the overall demand and peak for the grid, you're helping the environment as well. And so in order to participate in that, Duke Energy is willing to pay you a little bit of money. So there's a device we'll install on your air conditioning unit. And a couple of times a month in the summer, we may interrupt the use of the air conditioning unit for partial part of an hour, for some of the hour.
Right.
And just kind of turn the compressor off. The fan still runs, but your house might heat up a couple of degrees, but not anything too significantly. And for the summer months, which we define as July, August, September, and October, those 4 months will pay you an $8 credit on your power bill.
Wow.
So a total of $32 savings. So
Now, there's another element to the Power Manager program, and that's the smart thermostat. How does that fit in with everything?
yeah, so it's a similar program, but with technology, with the smart meters that we've got nowadays, and there are smart thermostats, programmable thermostats, that would allow us to go in and send a signal to actually just bump your thermostat up a few degrees. So it's a similar concept, reduces the overall demand, but our house might warm up a little bit during those afternoon hours when it's most likely to use, but helps us reduce the peak. That program, just for signing up, will send you a $75 e-gift card, and then for every year after that, there's a $25 e-gift card that
Wow,
comes
so we're making money, we're saving energy. That's pretty cool. Let me ask you one thing. I'll be sort of devil's advocate on this.
Sure.
Let's say I sign up for one of these Power Manager things, and I know that you're going to cut the air conditioning off for a few minutes or whatever. How do I know that's going to happen so I'll be ready?
Yeah, so there's not going to be a signal or anything that's going to tell you that it's going to happen. But, if you notice something, the house is heating up, you can always call. There's a toll-free number on the website you can call, and just make sure that, before you call a technician to come out and look at your unit, to make sure that there hasn't been an activation of the program. I tell you, I've talked to several folks that are participating in the program, and they don't even notice
Really?
that the program.
I was going to ask you, what kind of feedback do you get in general, whether they're using the smart technology on this or the AC control thing or whatever? I mean, what kind of feedback do you get off the Power Manager program?
Yeah, it's like I said, very few people even recognize that it's happening. And so it's a really easy way to participate in the program, save money, help the grid, help the environment. So all around, it's a good program. A lot different. Years ago we had what we called the load control program that was really just kind of used in emergencies. And that program, we'd send a signal and it would turn your air conditioning off for several hours.
Yeah.
And when we do those events,
My wife comes in and does that anyway. She just, I'm cold, and she just cuts it off without asking me.
Yeah, but those programs, people would want to disconnect from the program after we had an event. But this program it works a lot better. It's a lot more convenient, and it's kind of a win-win.
Oh yeah, that technology's something, isn't it?
It really is.
Up on screen, a couple things. You can get the email address is support@powermanagerstat.com that you can email on that. But also you can visit the main website, duke-energy.com, or Jimmy's favorite website of all time, generatingprogress.com, which gives you all sorts of consumer tips and information. Jimmy, thanks for the information. Thanks for helping us save money, get money, and save energy.
Yeah, sounds great. We've got a lot of other programs, so check out the website.
All right, we'll follow up on that in another month or so. We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today, just about time for the roundtable, but a quick shout out to the good folks here at Cedar Botanical Garden. I hope you'll visit the website, visit the garden. It's a great place. And it's a great place now because we have these 3 guys here in the garden with us. On my right, Dr. Don Martin, Vice Chair of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. Coincidentally, we have the chairman of that august body. Dave Plyler is here, filling in for Ogie and other folks. And Keith Granberry, who's filling in for himself, is here, founder of Helping Hands Consultants. Dave and I sort of agreed beforehand we're going to lay out on this one. I want Don and Keith to tackle this for reasons I'll get to first. The school board, Winston-Salem School Board, is paying $600,000+, over $600,000 to a Massachusetts consulting firm to help implement a new code of conduct for the school. The theory is they think the guidelines will help students behave better. Is the new plan naive in thinking that that will work? Should taxpayers have to pay $600,000 even though $400,000 of it's coming from COVID funds? And why not have existing staff handle that? There's a lot to unpack here. Don, go.
Well, I think the contract with this Massachusetts firm had two parts. It has the training part, and I think from your naive question, training's important. Training is important for kids and staff and faculty. Whether the amount of money is appropriate has a lot to do with the scope of the project. I mean, there are 3,500 teachers, there are 50,000 kids. It's depending on what they're going to try to do. I think the part that I have more trouble with from what I know about it is that a code of conduct is an expression of values, the expression of expectations of behavior in the community. And I think that has, and also what are the consequences for not following it? So I do think you need a whole lot of ownership locally. So you really need school board, you need principals particularly, they deal with it every day, teachers and students and parents, everybody almost in that order.
I want to go to the cost issue with Keith because when he was president of the Urban League, the two of you worked together.
We did.
And had, I think it was over 100, almost 200 kids who had been expelled or about to be expelled. You put them through your program, and I think every one of them graduated and went back to school. You didn't get $600,000 for that, did you?
No.
We
Not
didn't
at
know
all.
what $600,000 was.
Not at all. I think it's the opportunities. It needs a holistic approach. And then when I went to Don and we sit down with him, me and Stedman Graham sit down with Don, and we talked about the issues that many people have in those alternative schools. And many that they have is outside of the school. So if you take that money and really look at a holistic approach like Antonio Stevens with Second Chance and a variety of other organizations, and you work together to create a program for these kids, that within itself creates a code of contact because they want to be a part of that. If you don't have any food at home, you don't have any opportunities for jobs or any career, then what are you going to do? You're going to come to school and you're going to act out. And a code of contact means nothing if you don't have a holistic approach to surround these people and help them.
So although they think this
grow.
code of conduct is going to fix things on the front end, you're saying there's a front end that really needs to be addressed.
Think about this, alternative school, 200 kids, not one of those kids dropped out of school in an alternative program.
It was a good program. All right, a school district in North Texas has just banned hooded clothing, sleeveless shirts, and pants with holes in them. Girls above 5th grade will not be allowed to wear dresses or shorts. Superintendent says the new dress code will better prepare students to enter the workplace after graduation. You guys okay with this policy, or would you like to see the state adopt that, Don?
Well, I actually think, well, no, not from the state standpoint, but I actually think having standard dress is not a bad thing. In fact, back here in Forsyth, we used to have, uniform schools and standard dress, but those schools requested it. When you impose that as an edict and say, boom, we're going to do it, I guarantee you that community is, in an uproar now because it's all about expression, et cetera. And so it's how you do it makes a difference, and I think that was the worst way.
But Dave, a dress code, he says that'll better prepare them for the workplace.
Well, to use Bill Clinton's phrase, it depends on what you're trying to define. Back in my day, and I'm not trying to compare apples with oranges, but the fact is we had our own dress code. We didn't have anybody at Greensboro Senior High School telling us what to wear, but the boys wore peg pants. I don't know if you know that, but you can fix it so they're real tight around your ankle. And they also wore their slacks as low as they could get it without getting arrested. And the girls wore bobby socks. And it was a whole different world.
That sounds like a prison outfit.
Keith, quickly, what do you think? Dress code?
No, let these kids have an individual expression of their own interests. And workforce, these kids are too young to think about workforce. Let's talk about education.
All right, let's go a little bit different direction here. George Washington University's decided to drop colonials as their school nickname. They say that conjures up images of a time when slavery was prevalent. You okay with that decision, or is it a case of cancel culture and being too politically correct? Don?
I think a lot for me has to do with why you did it. I think there's some branding issue that's important. I'm not so sure that colonials have to conjure up, all these things from the past, I guess with American Indians and et cetera and slavery. But so I think they spent 2 years on it, I guess.
All right, quickly, Dave.
For the school, it's a good thing. But frankly, from my perspective, you just can't let things go on and on and on and change it from something that's historic and already accepted.
Up or down?
I think I'm okay with it, but I think you have to look at the history, and if the history's wrong, you change it.
All right, finally, guys, a new report appearing on TikTok, of all places, says the best way to relieve stress is to hum a tune or gargle with water for 10 seconds. Guys, do you hum or gargle to relieve stress? Don?
No, I walk my dog.
You walk your dog. Dave, do you gargle?
No.
Keith, what do you do to relieve stress? Gargle or?
You said, what do I do to relieve stress?
Well, no, never mind.
No, you just asked the question.
No,
you said, what do I do to relieve stress?
But I take it back. I don't want the answer.
Neither one of those.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. All right. Boy, we got out of that one quickly. All right, that's all the time we have. Oh, except for this. The city of Asheville experienced a brief power outage last week because a squirrel got loose and started playing around on the utility lines. Now, supposedly, the squirrel was just around there looking for nuts, which may explain why he was in Asheville. Did you understand that, Don? For all of us here on Triad Today, except for Keith, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you next week.